Right now, there is something watching you think. Something that was watching you think before this sentence began, and will keep watching after it ends. Something that has been watching without interruption for as long as you can remember. And here is what makes this stranger than it might first seem. You have been with this thing your entire life, closer to it than you are to anything else you have ever known. You have never once been without it, and yet no one can tell you what it is. Science cannot. Philosophy cannot. You cannot. And the most unsettling part, the best minds in the world have been trying to answer this question for over a century, with every tool available to modern inquiry. They still cannot. In the past century, we've built the most precise map of the human brain in history. We know which neural circuits generate language, construct memory, fire when you feel fear or love. This is genuine and extraordinary knowledge. It has transformed medicine, psychiatry, our understanding of human behavior, and yet something serious philosophers and neuroscientists will quietly admit. Explaining what the brain does is not the same as explaining why any of it is experienced. Why isn't the brain just running its processes in the dark? Why isn't it simply computing inputs and outputs with nobody home? That question sounds simple. It is not. And here is what I want you to notice. This is not an abstract question about brains in general. It is a question about you, about the thing that was watching before I started speaking, and is still watching now. Let me start not with a theory, but with something you've already experienced. At some point today, you will catch yourself lost in thought, a worry circling, a memory surfacing, a plan assembling itself from somewhere you can't quite locate. The mind running on its own, producing words and images and feelings. And somewhere in the middle of all that, there is a you watching it happen, not producing it, watching it. When a thought arrives, fully formed, unannounced, who chose it? If you chose it, you'd have had to think of choosing it first. But then who chose that prior thought? The question doesn't resolve, it recurses. Thoughts arrive, and something that was already there notices them arriving. Now, find a photograph of yourself from childhood, the kind where you are very young, 4 or 5 years old. Look at the face in that picture. Is that you? You would say yes, almost without thinking. Of course it's you. But almost nothing physical is the same. The cells have been replaced, the brain has been rewired entirely. The memories, the fears, the desires, none of it matches. The child in that photograph had never heard most of the words you now think in, had never made any of the choices that shaped who you became. So what exactly makes that child the same person as the one looking at the photograph right now? Your first instinct is probably continuity, the thread of recollection or memories, linking one moment to the next. But memory is partial, reconstructed, unreliable, and it fails every night anyway. Last night, you fell asleep. At some point, you stopped dreaming. There was, as far as we can tell, no experience at all. No you, no awareness, just darkness and time passing. And then you woke up, and there was a you again. How do you know it was the same you? What if the self who woke up had simply been assembled that morning, constructed fresh from the memories and patterns in your brain, not continuing from where you left off? How would you tell the difference? You couldn't, and yet the sense of continuity feels absolute, more certain than almost anything else you believe about yourself. I want to come back to an experiment from the 1960s, one of the most disturbing findings in neuroscience. It involves splitting a human brain in two. What it reveals should make you question that continuity you feel so certain about. But first, what does modern science actually say about what you are? Neuroscience has an answer. It's impressive, and it's incomplete in a way that should concern you. When neuroscientists scan a brain at rest, a specific set of regions light up together, the default mode network. What it does, it turns out, is generate you. It stitches together past and future. It rehearses social scenarios. It constructs the autobiographical narrative of who you are, what you want, what you fear. When you imagine yourself 5 years from now, that network is running. When you replay a conversation from yesterday, that network is running. Disrupt it. Through deep meditation, certain compounds, specific brain injuries, and the ordinary sense of self fades or disappears. The narrative of me simply stops, which tells us the self is not a fixed, stable thing. It's a process, actively generated moment by moment. But here is the disturbing experiment I mentioned. In the 1960s, Roger Sperry and Michael Gazzaniga studied patients who had undergone a radical surgery. The corpus callosum, the bridge connecting the brain's 2 hemispheres, had been cut. What they found was, each hemisphere showed independent preferences and intentions. When one patient was asked what career he wanted, his right hemisphere chose racing driver. His left hemisphere said draftsman. Same skull, one brain, 2 answers. Gazzaniga later identified what he called the interpreter, a module in the left hemisphere. It watches what the rest of the brain does, then immediately constructs a story about why it chose to act that way. A narrator, writing the autobiography after the events have already happened. Now, think about the color red. Neuroscience can tell you everything that happens when you see it. The wavelength of light, the neural pathways, the brain regions that activate. But here is the question it cannot answer. Why does red look like anything? The philosopher Frank Jackson invented a thought experiment that has never been satisfactorily answered. A scientist named Mary has spent her entire life studying the neuroscience of color vision. She knows every physical detail of what happens in the brain when someone sees red. Every wavelength, every neural pathway, every region that activates. But Mary has lived her whole life in a black and white room. She has never seen color herself. One day, she walks outside and sees red for the first time. Does she learn something new? Almost everyone's instinct says yes. Mary feels the color red. And if she does, then something was missing from all that physical knowledge. The physical account was never complete. That felt quality is what philosophers call a quale. David Chalmers named the problem. Why is any of this experienced at all? Why isn't there just processing, computation, with no inner light on? That is the hard problem of consciousness. Daniel Dennett is the philosopher most committed to closing this gap. He argues consciousness is a user illusion, a story the brain tells about itself. It is a serious argument, rigorously made, but it faces one problem that proves impossible to move past. An illusion requires someone for whom things appear illusory. You cannot explain away the witness. Every attempt to do so silently requires it. This is where Western science honestly stops. It can map the narrator in extraordinary detail, but it cannot account for the one the narrator is performing for. And here is where this conversation becomes unexpectedly strange, because that gap was identified with extraordinary rigor by thinkers in India over 2,000 years ago. They didn't treat it as a problem to solve. They treated it as the only honest place to start. In the 8th century, a philosopher named Adi Shankaracharya began from an observation so simple it's almost impossible to argue with. Whatever you can observe, you are not it. Think about what that means. You can observe your thoughts, so you are not your thoughts. You can observe your emotions, your moods, your memories, your personality as it shifts across the years. You can even observe your sense of self, that felt feeling of being a you, and notice it varying, stronger in some moments, quieter in others, occasionally dissolving entirely. But if you can observe all of these, what is the observer? And here is the question Shankaracharya pressed. Can the observer itself be observed? Try it now. Try to catch the thing doing the watching. Every time you look, you find something, a thought about it, a sensation near it, an image of you, but never the bare awareness itself. It's always one step back from wherever you look. This is not mysticism. It is a logical observation about the structure of experience. From it, the tradition of Advaita Vedanta, meaning non-dual wisdom, built a precise concept, one of the most rigorously developed philosophical systems in human history. The Sakshi, the witness consciousness, not a self that thinks or chooses or remembers. The invariant awareness present through all of it, waking, dreaming, and the awareness that notices the return from dreamless sleep. The one thing that cannot be made into an object, because it is always already the subject, always already on this side of the looking. It is what the default mode network's narrator is performing for. In the Advaita framework, it is not something the brain produces. It is more fundamental than the brain, the awareness within which the brain and all its processes arise. The Sanskrit term for what you most fundamentally are in this tradition is Atman, not your ego, not your personality, not the narrative the default mode network generates moment by moment. The pure awareness within which all of those processes appear, run their course, and eventually pass. The Indian philosophical school of Samkhya arrives at the same territory with different precision. It distinguishes two irreducible principles: Purush, pure witness consciousness, unchanging, uninvolved, and Prakriti, all of matter and mind, including the brain itself. Everything neuroscience studies, the default mode network, the interpreter, the autobiographical self, belongs to Prakriti. It can process, it can compute, it can generate the most sophisticated narrative imaginable, but none of it in itself experiences anything. Experience requires the witness. There is a genuine philosophical parallel here, not because either tradition influenced the other. They developed independently, thousands of miles apart, centuries apart, both pressing against the same structural limit from different directions. Western philosophy reached it from outside. The Indian traditions started there. I am not saying Indian philosophy solved the hard problem. What I am saying is this: where Western philosophy finds a problem awaiting a mechanism, the Indian tradition found a foundation. And that's where the parallel breaks down, because honest comparison requires naming the limit. Advaita says one universal consciousness underlies all experience. Samkhya says there are many individual witnesses, each distinct. Neither school has settled this. The hard problem, it turns out, has ancient versions too. The next time you find yourself caught in a loop, a worry circling, a plan assembling, a memory arriving uninvited, try something small. Instead of following the thought, notice what is noticing it. You don't need a meditation cushion or a philosophy degree. The experiment requires nothing except a moment of attention turned inward. You are not trying to find anything. You are simply asking, what is here, before the thinking starts. Whatever you encounter, a sense of quiet, a kind of open space, or nothing you can name at all, that is the territory this video has been trying to describe. Whether what is there is the default mode network doing its job, or something Western science doesn't yet have vocabulary for, or something Indian philosophers were pointing at with great precision 3,000 years ago, that is genuinely still an open question. So, what do you think you are? If you want to stay with that question, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.